war, freedom, identity, purpose. Some experiences change the course of a life, while others reveal the true character of the man. My guest today has served in military intelligence, lived through war, represented his country abroad, built a successful business here in Australia, authored multiple books, and currently holds a Guinness World Record. But this conversation's, it's not about achievements alone. It's about the decisions that we make under pressure, the principles that are forged through adversity, patriotism, and the uncommon thinking that shape the man behind every single one of them. This is my conversation with Mario Bekes. Enjoy. Mario, welcome to Think Uncommon. It's your day off today, and I appreciate you taking the time to come in and allow to be interviewed. Thank you.
Joe, thank you. Pleasure is all mine. And thank you to all your listeners, the viewers of your amazing podcast on Bohemian, your podcast show.
Lovely. I appreciate that. Mario, this podcast exists purely because lives rarely happen by accident. And behind every remarkable achievement is a series of decisions, beliefs, and moments that most people never see. My goal here is to uncover those moments and to understand how others can learn from them. And you and I today are going to go through quite a journey. Your own journey
Okay.
has taken you through many, many different worlds. You've spoken publicly about serving with the Croatian defence structures, including military police, security services, and foreign affairs security intelligence, before undertaking a 5-year posting at the Croatian Consulate General in Sydney here. And then you later established the Insight Intelligence here in Australia. You've shared loads of experiences on your podcast, through your books, including Blood-Soaked Soil, What is the True Price of Freedom, and Mike to Millions, exploring war, freedom, sacrifice, survival, communication, and the lasting impact those experiences can have on a person's life and how they proceed. More importantly, though, you earned a Guinness World Record for completing 55 hours and 26-minute audio live stream. You've completed Camino de Santiago, which we're going to have a very interesting conversation about, a journey that may describe as transformational. Now, as I prepared for today's conversation, I went down a rabbit hole and then another rabbit hole and then another rabbit hole. But what stood out for me about you was your experiences alone, but the decisions that you made under pressure. And there's so much evidence of that throughout your life. And that resonates deeply with the work that I do. You see, the uncommon man was created through a need. And it's a philosophy that I've created on the belief that the man's greatest legacy is not his success, but the character that he develops through the experiences that he has. You'll know that courage, code, consistency, congruency, and contribution are significant to everything that we talk about. Today, we're going to do things back to front, inside out, and a little bit left to right. We're going to take this conversation wherever we go. And my first question to you is, shall we begin?
With all might, go for it.
I'd like to begin with the most recent chapter of your life, Camino. You completed Camino de Santiago. People walk the Camino for so many different reasons. Now, in your case, you did it later in life. And we've had a brief conversation about this. Most people that travel Camino experience something about themselves, but something struck me in one of your recent podcast episodes. You questioned God during your pilgrimage. Tell me about that.
Joe, first of all, that intro is fantastic. Like, you should be proud. I'm really enjoying, like, even listening to you, the opening sentences of your podcast. Look, as for Camino, I didn't even know the communities till later last year with a group of my friends discussed that pilgrim. And I'm not a person who goes to pilgrims. I mean, I grew up in a very secular Roman Catholic family where the church, God, and country, everything is number one. But somehow down the road, like me and church become very close, and God, you can't blame the God on everything, but I did. So like a lot of things was happening to me in life. I tried to understand why did it happen to me, and then I realized on Camino the life happened to me for the reason and the God. So when I went in Camino Primitivo, which is 321 kilometers walk through Asturias and Galicia, I expected Joe, and I'll be brutally honest, that I can do it. I'm the ex-military, special force, this and that. The reality is that I underestimated everything inside of me, around me, and most importantly, Mino Primitivo, for some reason, stripped everything inside of me. For example, would very comfortably spend the rest of my life putting myself behind my all achievements, Guinness World Record, being involved, being the wounded, working in a diplomatic espionage, and all these things. It's like that Camino actually stripped that away from me, and more I try to understand, more hurdles I experience. The third day, I have the toe infection, my toenails starting falling apart. I have a fever. I hated trees, I hated everybody. I just want to give up. There was no one reason to continue, and yet somehow, in the morning I'll hear that vague voice in my head. I know, it's to me, just make it first step. And the biggest problem for me was after day number 4, it wear my boots because feet were so swollen, so infected. Like I had my sneakers, so I started walking in sneakers, and the one briefly moment when I say, God, and I think myself, but nobody pushed me there to be. It was my decision. Suddenly, Joe, I start getting biggest enemy, which is my brain. I never ask questions, gives me answers. So for me, it was the biggest challenge I think that in my life I see it.
So I can only imagine what it was like being on that road. And you've
Mm.
described it as very lonely. You've got no contact with the world.
Mm.
Phone doesn't work. There's no GPS. There's just you and often a dirt track in a direction. You don't know where you're going to eat next. You don't know what you're going to eat when you get there. You don't know what the accommodation's like. If I understood you correctly, you literally have a backpack and a pair of shoes on, and in the backpack are toiletries, change of clothes, and very basic necessities because you don't want to take anything too heavy with you because you have to carry it.
But true, look, I think that our backpack actually represents metaphorically our life. I think that we are overestimating things we need in our life. Like backpack was literally a couple undies, couple t-shirts, and some basic hygiene, and a lot of painkillers and the bandages and those things. So it adds up to 12 kilos, and you think 12 kilos is not a lot, but when you walk the distance and then suddenly you are in Asturias, which is all mountains areas and passages. King Alfonso II was walking 1300 years ago to go from Oviedo to Santiago de Compostela, where the Apostle Jesus Apostle was buried. And I think myself, what I'm doing here? Then you realize that road paved is by Romans, even older, and then you start saying things which you have on your podcast, which is the wolves. On my ninth day, I ran into a group of the wolves, which was, I'll be honest, as I should be honest, because I was so much afraid. I was only 100 meters, and I said to myself, God, I can't even run away. Backpack is too heavy. Well, I'm going to defend myself. This is not a movie. For some reason, they just stand at the road like a 2, 3 seconds and then run. Like they go on the top of the mountain. Joe, I said to myself, God, this is normal. And I mean, like, I'm in a country, nobody can hear my scream. Phone doesn't work. No reception. I was losing like a kilo per day, not because I thought, just what the, was losing the kilo per day and knowing where I'm gonna eat. And I ate at night very little, wash my clothes, go in the bunk bed with another 40 people. There's usually always a guy who sleeps very well. That's a guy who snores all night. And I mean, I think it was worth it because I would say challenged me mentally and physically as well. Do I walk to walk, just to talk to talk. It was interesting, yeah.
When you think about it, that's an awful lot of time to talk to God, right? It's just
Mm,
you, nobody responding, no distractions, nobody to keep occupied, no one to occupy you. So then it simply just becomes a case of this is what this looks like. And
yes,
I'm going to start conversing with effectively myself.
yes, that's correct. Look, the one brief moment I realized that my biggest enemy the entire time was my brain. I never ask any questions. Just want to finish the walk. And again, 25 kilometers, 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers per day walk. It is not meant to you just rush through these things. It's to experience these things. You can't, if you can just imagine wake up in the morning, it's a very chilly, very cold, fresh, your lungs expanding, with that cold air. And then you start walking and it becomes very, very, very hot during the day. So you take everything off, you're wet. Your brain becomes so busy and not just start questioning now the moment, but everything around you, the people, the relationships. And sometimes I'll just sit there and I have that one can of Coke, I'll have some sugar. And I'll sit there and say to myself, why am I doing this? What I try to achieve this.
Good
And
question.
it's I couldn't get that answer till the last day.
Right.
I started with that, premise in my head, like doing this in the war, like this in life, who I am. Over there, nothing. Literally nothing. You're just by yourself. You choose to do this part, and every day you say, Joe, there was no one reason to walk. Every day I want to give up. Millions of reasons. But that very little tiny voice in the morning. And then I think of all these personal trainers who say 10,000 steps per day. I'm like, I'm making 50,000 per day. So I
I was
say,
at
well, not.
10,000 at 8 a.m.
So,
Does that mean I get to sit there?
yeah, exactly. And then you see the people who have walked with me, they're being judged. When I ask most of the people who I met on that path, 90% told me that they are there because they're in intersection in their life and then nobody to listen to them. Very, very small percentages people looking for miracles health-wise.
Mhm.
Some of them they have the divorces, breakups, and all these things.
Yeah.
Most of the people I met there, they are come because they're seeking the answers.
Mm.
Some of them they get straight away. Some of them they get at the end like me. Mostly I saw the people who are trained, Ibo and Pilates, they couldn't complete because they've been wrong prepared. They believe that everything is just do the muscles, on spot. It requires more than just that, yeah.
It's very interesting. Effectively, what I'm hearing is that for at least a proportion of the people that attempt the walk, they believe that they're prepared
Mm.
without actually having done any specific preparation for the scenario. So while they might have what I refer to as a general preparation, they did not do the specific preparation that was required for that one event.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Look, I believe that preparation is the mother of all victories. This is what I learned very quickly in my age. I went in military school at age 14. And I truly believe that in life, whatever you do, you need to do some sort of preparations. Like, Joe, you will agree with me. People talk about success, people talk about how to become rich, how to do this and that. Yet not many people take it first most important prerequisite, that's the health. If you're healthy, you can do a lot of things. Same with Camino. A lot of people who are skinny and good looking, but after second day, my knees, my hips, and this and that, I can't do it. I said to myself, why these people giving up, from the physical reasons, and me overweight still don't, So I just said that because I prepare myself better. I think same in life, people are choosing easy path. Giving up is not in my vocabulary and preparation is necessary. That was me.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I watched a documentary just last weekend on Special Forces selection, Navy SEALs selection, actually, and the process that they go through, not just in SEALs selection itself, but also in Hell Week. And
Mm.
the findings that they've been able to gather, the statistics that they have. And as Jocko Willink said many times, it's not the guy that comes in with the big muscles. It's not even the Olympian that comes in that's got huge amount of cardiovascular fitness. It's not the guy that's got the attitude with the tattoos. In fact, more often than not, the people that you think are going to end up being SEALs don't, because it's the person that can show up day after day, focus on the next step, the next step, the next step, and has the adaptability to follow an order, but also understand that at any moment that order can change.
I agree too. One of the things that I learned very quickly when I was age 18 went in a war, everything what you learn in a theory, and you have some sort of understanding, practical way which you train on a field, you need to apply in a real combat situation. And it's all about, as you say, being, adapt, adjust, improvise, and you need to continue carrying the mission. Um, In Spain, I was doing Camino. One thing I realized very quickly, which is very frightening, I must say, there was no support. There's nobody, no friends, nobody, there's nobody there for you, literally. You and I here, we can call each other. And that's what I say to you, Joe, how much I admire you and what you're doing and your podcast and anything else, and particularly your type of training. For that, I salute you because it takes the courage. It takes the courage to stand in front of camera. And that's an effort nobody can judge. When you're going into unknown territory, you're bringing everything what you are, what you know, to survive another day and another day. Because after all, in life, itself, hills, downhills, and obstacles, some small praise in life. Life is always going to hit you. They're always going to hit you. Or those around you who don't think you deserve to be happy. Either way.
Always that, right? Those antagonists that have their opinions that like to throw it
Mm.
into the mix. And it's really up to us as to whether that means anything, right? People can
Yes.
have their opinions. And by generating a sense of self-respect, but also what I refer to as trust equity. That means that people can say whatever they like external to you, and your external environment does not have to impact your internal mechanisms. You can look at the world a certain way, and anything else can happen outside of you. Which brings me nicely to a number that I saw come up quite consistently that you'll be very familiar with 1,800. It's a big number. Now, when we think of 1,800 in relation to consecutive days, that number becomes even more magnificent for all the wrong reasons, though, in this case. Because when we refer to 1,800 days for you, we're not talking about something that's to be celebrated. We're talking about something that you endured.
Right. So thank you so much for mentioning this. 1,800 consecutive combat days. It's something I never chose. I never wanted. It just happened to me. So on the 14th of July, 14th of July, sorry, June, apologies. 14th of June, 1991, for me, officially war started. Wake up in the morning, happy 18 years old in a relationship, these things, dreaming, I'm going to have the family, the kids, like what else are you going to do? So when I wake up in the morning on that infamous day, I was being wake up by military police slamming my door. Opened the door. They told me I need to report to army barracks. It meant I'm the Navy, the military school in the Navy. They said to me, we don't give, if this, if that, you need to report back to the, army barracks, the infantry. So as I was walking back into my unit, I realized that the unit is empty. It's a my parents should be at home, my younger brother as well. Instead of this, I found the note, just a white paper on a credenza, just main table in the kitchen, and then my parents wrote, "We okay," and they left, right? What does it even mean? And that night before, actually was tired. It was a big shooting in my city and everything else. I was very drunk. Couldn't remember. And as I was walking downstairs in my building with my back, met a couple guys. They said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Like, I'm going to report army barracks." And they told me, "Were you fighting for your country or for the Yugoslavia?" I'm like, "Well, Yugoslavia is my country." No, Croatia. I said, "What is in these 10 seconds?" I said, like, "No, this is my country, being, everything else." And I went in the war straight away. 3 days later, I was ready on the combat in one of the villages. Then received some training, and then combat more training, and more combat more training. So by the November, 6 months in war, I have enough because I was still in my uniform. Didn't hear from my parents. Mind you, I was 18 years old. My father was alpha male, the killer, the killer machine. And around me was all these average Joes, no alpha males, nobody. Suddenly we have all these people, 60 plus years old, being drawn into military because men run away. And I saw that my life is actually collapsing. And so that was still end of the 95, day after day, day after day, day after day. When I say it's not every day, you're fighting and shooting. To my job in the meantime, working in military security services as a part of military police. That's how much I can say. And then you do the special actions, and then you do this, do that. It's always in contact with the enemy, always. 100 days.
Mario, one of the things that I find significant about
Mm,
stories is when we live in an environment where everything's so easy, there's affluence everywhere, and we don't really have to think about the type of story that you've just given us. I mean,
mm,
I saw this on TV,
okay.
and for me, it was something that was happening on the other side of the world. For you, this is an instilled part of the history of your soul. You have that and you carry this with you every day. So while the event itself is immensely significant, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you,
Please, by all means.
as an 18-year-old you've just confessed that you were drunk the night before, do you have any regret? Your parents left, they took your brother, they left you a note. What went through your mind at that moment before the military police knocked at your door and right after?
Look, I have no regrets whatsoever. If I would do again, I'll do again, but a little bit smarter. That's for sure. Mm, I think that we all get a call in life. We need to do, better sure say things. If you want to be successful, you need to do extraordinary things. And when the war happened to me, and I will say this to everybody, war is a worst horror you can imagine. For me, it was I'm gonna be like a Rambo. I'm gonna liberate my country in 3 days. I have the biggest machine gun called MG42, which is 10 kilos. Germans use this, they call it chainsaw in the Second World War. Um, Being the biggest guy, I was 85 kilos. I was the biggest guy, got the biggest weapon. I have no regrets. Um, I saw good in people, I saw bad in people. I saw the human misery and suffering, which I couldn't understand. My grandfather, the three children. My mom was one of them. They left him. They dumped him in the basement. He's diabetic. So like, I need to take care about my grandfather as well somehow to find a 1991 there was no like today insulin, so need to fight for it. Everything's shut down. There's no people. Everything is. Can you imagine you live in a city and suddenly, Joe? I always they say this to people. When the war happened, it's always gray. And I saw people uniting themselves together, whatever, like a couple thousand. City was 100,000 strong. During the war was 2,000 people defending, and maybe 3,000 was left. So city was ghost town, literally ghost town. It was terrible. Um, no regrets. But one thing I realized very early that be careful what you wish for, because as a teenager, I wanted to be the Rambo. I wanted to experience the war. War happened to me. Wanted to go into working diplomatic intelligence. to me. Be careful what you wish for. So many things happen to me. One thing I will change, that is that I will take more comfort looking for my parents, looking for the answers. Why all my life telling me one thing, you're supposed to be those ones who love me, care for me, but you left me. God said, David, he passed away. He says to me, I wish I said, but dude, it's too late now. I mean, it's too late what you wish it for. You left me. He said, I was afraid. It's like, oh, you think I wasn't afraid at 18 years old? So, you learn very quickly the world is actually, it's not just what you see in the movies, it's a reality. It is that, it is most of the time, you can die in some woeful way, and nobody can help you with this one. So it just become the statistics. So I think the only regret I do have, it's not being more positive. I become very, very serious young man who lost the hair very quickly, wounded first in 3 months in war. I was wounded in my back. Like, it was just a lot of things there I can't understand, you know what I mean? But then I said to myself, okay, I'm here, can't escape. I need to fight for my country, for the freedom, for my people, and that's it. You know what I mean? There's no step back. That's how it's gonna be, and that's what the mission was always inside of my head. You becoming more serious, more automated, and yeah.
So that was your purpose at the time.
A
It
purpose,
was
that's correct.
freedom. I'm here to fight. I can't get out of this. So, first of all, I'm hearing acceptance, reluctant acceptance, but it's
Mm.
acceptance. It's a reality check of, okay, I can't get out of this. So, how do I therefore make the most of it? I've got two choices. I can either become a victim to my situation, and there are loads of choices I can make as a result of that, or I can look at this situation like someone in Navy SEAL training might do and say, right, the orders can change at any given moment. All I need to do is take the next step and the next step. And I'm taking it in this direction. And this direction looks like I believe that with a win, we can have freedom and then lives can change.
Absolutely, like the purpose is very, very, very important. I said, like, in November 1991, 6 months in the war, or 5 months, really almost 6 months.
Yeah,
I had this terrible experience when we walk through the thick fog in one village. We need to go liberate a place called Vukovar. Vukovar has been surrounded, it's been grinded for the months, by enemy, and they have no choice. They're all gonna die there, and they prepared the special operation groups to enter with 50 kilos extra equipment in city and stay in besieged city for coming weeks or months. And
yeah,
I volunteered, so I'm gonna help my people. And as we walk to that village, Joe, suddenly, like, the the wall disappeared. I'm just seeing, like, falling into some abyss together with other guys, everybody screaming, and but that was the biggest crater in the planet I ever saw. And as we climb out of that crater up, and all broken, but no one's still smoking, like, bro, like, it's okay, it's nothing. Everybody's like, it's nothing, but you hurt me. I broke the rib, I didn't know. And there's this cross, and Jesus was being broken in the half cross, like, it was a big fight all day, and I think about 50% of people there. And purpose was to help others,
yeah.
not to think of yourself. So yeah, your purpose is important, Joe. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It definitely seems to have been the driver to keep you going, which inevitably you got out of the situation. Now, for the people that are watching this podcast, I just want to loop back on something. You were able to reunite with your father?
Well, my father was, I met him in 93. They come back. They were in first, they were in hiding with his family, 100 kilometers from the front line, which I didn't know.
Yeah,
Then somehow 93, my parents decided to come because it's sort of like a status quo in my area. So it was a little bit quiet, back to the factories. UN arrived as well.
right.
Mm, and like, it that was a front line, but it was just, an easy living, but people are, adjust themselves to situation, right? It's not a shelling like 91. So my parents arrived, and that moment I left the home nice and tidy. He got kids, they're going to live in army barracks. I can't understand people who loves you, people who's supposed to be there for you.
Mm.
to dump you. And for me, it's not about forgiveness because you've done this once, you're going to do this again. And 3 years of the war, I saw a lot of betrayals, a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of unhappy moments in people's life. They didn't want to be statistics to nobody. I mean,
So that leads to an interesting dichotomy.
I-
You've got this man that showed up in your life, and he's been very
mm,
clear on his expectations of you as his son. You've
mm,
mentioned how he's told you how to behave emotionally, how you're supposed to be a provider, how you are supposed to be a supporter, how your job is to go first as the man.
yes,
And yet you've woken up this day and he's behaved in a way that's completely unexpected, and he's vanished for years, and then he's come back, and you've been left with that period of time, and you've gone through immense change personally, emotionally, physically. When you stepped into the military on that day that you were told to show up, did you turn into that alpha that your unit needed, that your father told you that you had to be?
no, think that you become the one. You become the one. You see, I was a tip of the spear straight away. Like I was in, was drafted to the first defense force, which is Ministry of Interior, Special Forces. So like I was very young. I saw my city being crumbling under the heavy shelling, the airplanes. We have nothing. We just have a Kalashnikovs. You know what I mean? So you need to get the weapons. There's a sanction. There's all these things. You know what I mean? Everything what you had yesterday, today doesn't exist anymore. Become, start smoking or start drinking because I couldn't understand that everybody who I know, he already escaped. Am I the only one? And no regrets whatsoever. It's my city. I gonna die for my city, for my people. Because when I saw my grandfather, who was 70 something years old, in the basement shaking, I mean, like with a group of the other elderly people, who's gonna defend them? It's gonna be me. So once when you go into combat shape the alpha males. You need, you really need experience to deal with the fear. When the fight starts, it's gone. Adrenaline is very rushing. That anticipation, the nights they're so long. We have so many attacks during the night, so your eyes become like this. You just and then as the time progressed, and I had a lot of trains in meantime because I was a young perspective, mm, person. Government invested a lot of money. You realize that what you know from the war can be enhanced. And as you're enhancing your skills, and then you passing this on others, and others, I can do this. So I believe by my example, if I can do it, I never request from nobody do nothing if I can do it. That's I respect you, Joe, as well, because when I see how you train, I said to myself, that woman, she has that made. I'm just admiring you. So yeah, you need to lead by example, and if you want to become that alpha male, you need to face the fear. Real fears. Nothing wrong to be afraid.
Absolutely. I've recently interviewed Andy Steele, who was
Mm,
an army commando in the Australian Army, spent some time in
mm,
Iraq. And his story is amazing. And he talks about self regulation, about how he learned, and he went into the army young as well. He decided to enlist at 17. He
oh
was
my
put into
God.
special forces immediately. He was sidelined straight into special forces. You've got the it factor. We want you
Yeah.
in. And so for him, it was a very quick transition, albeit he had chosen that transition. So it was a very different feeling associated with it. But the mentality was the same. It was, I need to learn what I need to learn and get past what shows up in front of me so that I can keep making that next step because this will end. Everything has to come to an end. And on the other side of that ending, there's something else.
Hey, Joe, you are spot on. You see, I saw the people who joined the later. There was then another big draft, 94, 95. People start slowly returning into country. And as time passes by, we become stronger and more resolute to liberate occupied territories, all these things. I saw the people being drafted, but as well, there's a number of people who become the war junkies. And I said, like, war is gonna finish one day. Eventually it's gonna finish. Ah, no, Mario, well, bro, I just gonna think a little bit further because when the wars end, we are not heroes anymore. The medals and all this good, it's there, you know what I mean? But what next? That did happen. Most of my colleagues, they found themselves 2000, 2001, forcibly retired, and they suddenly lost the bearings, particularly for the purpose it is, what they pose for living could be, and that they live in a past that is bad because past is a past. You can't change it, and you need to learn that. You need to see the future. What do you want? What is your key objective? Always said to people like me, don't think right now, but think about this. What is the key objective? What do you want to achieve now? And then when you achieve this, was the next step, because that is a life. Either you learn, do or die. There's nothing else. And I saw the many people in my life, particularly in trainings, and I mean, if you don't understand that hardship of the military is not just nice uniform. Military is not just operating with a weapon. That demands from you to be the awesome comrade to your friend. You know what I mean? To be aid. Prepare to learn, to show the knowledge, and be there. Joe, I saw in the army something I never saw before. People will be sick, but nobody's sick here because if I'm sick, I wouldn't let you down. You know what I mean? Well, no, no. That's the military. There's no, democracy type tip. You know what I mean? We can joke, we can do these things, but when the action's there, it's a one cohesive unit. You know what I mean? It's a we swing left, we all swing left. That's it.
I think that's what draws a lot of people to the military is the
Mm,
sense of unity within your unit. It's
mm.
you are brothers, and no matter what happens, you will stand beside each other and you will be able to rely on each other. And when you think of it, it's the most profound sense of trust because when you're in a firefight on the front line or otherwise ambush, whatever shows up, if you don't see someone that's about to shoot you, you're effectively relying on the people around you to see that person. So not only do you have your brother's backs, they have yours.
That's correct. But same goes in your life. You need to be careful who you're choosing with,
Mm.
choose who you're gonna be with, surrounded. You need to be careful who you are taking advice as well from. Let's see.
Mm.
I always come back to that point when I say to people, it's easy to be the armchair expert. Don't tell me how to do hydroxy if you never done hydroxy. You see, I said to people that have a tendency to tell me, you should do this, you should do that. I said, like, but did you try? No. So how do you know? How do you know
Mm.
someone's supposed to be rich, successful if he never went on a field? And I remember my dad in the 80s, he will wake up about 4 o'clock in the morning. We
Mm.
live very close to next to the factory, literally. And he'll wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, make the coffee because 4:30 he'll have the small transistor to listen Voice of America, like on the outside of the curtain.
Yeah.
And always was being intrigued, what they're saying there, wow. And then he was find a way to humiliate me, to put me down, how stupid or ridiculous I am, who I don't know nothing, I'm too young, this and that. It turns out that people actually who runs the world, people who run by example, not talk. That's what I can share with everybody. Be careful who you surround yourself with, and before you engage yourself with anybody to be in your inner surroundings, your friend or whoever it is, open your eyes and see what these people actually do in their life, not just what they talk.
There are two things that come to mind as you say this. One is a statement but made by Maya Angelou, and she says, "When somebody shows you their true colors, believe them." I have referred to that so many times in my life, and I know you and I are aligned on that, that when someone shows you their true colors, you don't ignore it. You sit there and you observe it and go, okay, is that situational or is this character? And if this is character, then I'm going to make a decision on the basis of what I'm currently seeing as their true colors. And the other thing that's absolutely poignant that I want to make sure that we point out here is the demonstration of the behavior of your dad. We are all everything. And when I say that, what I mean is that everything that we see in life, every behavior that we see, good and bad, the atrocities and the fantastic, every single one of us is capable of that in any given situation if the triggers are right or wrong at a particular point in time. We can find ourselves behaving in a direct response to our environment in a way that's contradictory to how we've shown up in our life, purely because there's a pressure applied and we are responding to that pressure.
Look, I truly admire how you put this here. I mean, there's no need in life to complicate things, just simplify them. I mean, one of the things I learned, and many times in my life I got to use, is my intuition, right? And although I become sometimes more comfortable with, oh, I know things, then I done such a terrible decision that it cost me everything. And I mean, literally. But I think that the universe, God, our mothers, whatever you want to call, they gave us the best gift, that is intuition. And if intuition says something is right, usually it is. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Run away. And I decided in my life to be careful who I'm surrounding myself with. Not the people who have the most, it's the people who can give me most in terms of uplift me. I can learn. And on Camino, one thing I learned, it's who's going to be there for you when you truly need, and how you can survive the best in your own without needing somebody. Because the last thing is what you want to do is to call somebody and ask them, and can you help me? Because you need to make sure that every resource comes into your possession, that you use it. And I mean, when you have nothing left, then you can call your friends, because it's easy to lean up on you or somebody else and say like, oh, I have the friends. But Camino showed me again that when you strip it away from all the commodities, luxuries, and everything else, only what's left is you. And nobody can come from Australia to save me. So I need to start walking, move to the next station where I'm going to sleep, eat, well, address my feet. I think it is, you need to find your own tribe, people who you are happy with, people who will not betray you, people who are going to understand you. It doesn't need to provide you money and the riches. Give you the best thing you can ever ask, and that's the friendship in true sense. Friendship. Very expensive.
I first came across that concept when I read David Goggins' first book, and
Yeah.
he talked about the foxhole. And as a person who has largely gone through life as a lone wolf, often by choice, when I came across the concept of the foxhole, suddenly I started to understand my friend groups. Why do I have certain friends that are directly in my line of sight all of the time and they are absolutely there for me? And I know what they're doing and they know what I'm doing, but we can not speak for 6 months. And then we can have a quick conversation and it's like we saw each other yesterday. And we have an understanding that in the event that one of us needs the other, we'll just drop everything. It's where do you need me? And that foxhole is meant to be tight. You're not meant to have a lot of people in your immediate inner circle, what we refer to as our ride or die. We're not supposed to have a lot of those people because realistically, what you've spoken about is self-sufficiency. It's about, I want to make sure that I'm self-sufficient, but I also want to know that one, I'm capable and willing to reach out for help. But two, I have a tribe around me or I have people in my foxhole that I know that if I put my hand up and go, hey, I need some help, they're not going to question me. They're not going to deny me. They know me well enough to know that if I'm asking for help, I legitimately need it. It's not because I can't be bothered. It's because I've reached the capacity of my sufficiency at that point in time. And they'll be there for you.
I think that you said something very, 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 very important. What people don't, it's that the judgment. You see, I've been in life in so many times in position when I ask people to help me, and they will, I expected they will help me, and they were not there for me. So you need to learn to live on your own. And I understand that most of people are afraid to walk alone. I know they're afraid of the dark. I know they're afraid. It's easy when you walk in a group of the people. It's easy when you are at the workplace. But I guarantee you, Joe, one thing what I learned in my line of work in intelligence, once when people come home, they close the door, anxiety hits. There's nobody there for them. There's no workplace. There's no drinking parties. There's no, you know, all this. social segments of their life, you're by yourself. As the people are lost. They can't wait for the Monday morning. They're gossiping. To do the sit in their cubicles, talk about they look at my new Botox, look at my new shoes, look at me, look at this. Thing is, if you are afraid of yourself, being by yourself, you're never in life gonna be sufficient for anything else than to depend on others. And there's a moment in life when life somehow cut all these cords around you and you stayed on your own. And that's a certainly very impactful situation in terms that you will experience so many obstacles you'll not be able to overcome. And that's going to be a moment when you're going to lose everything. So that's how I see the life.
Yeah, I think we often trade the adversity and what I like to call the valley of the shadow of death. We trade that for the greener pastures because we don't want to go through the discomfort. But what we really deny ourselves is the chance to have an identity shift, a transformation, which is what the valley provides for you. Because if you don't choose to sit in the valley and go through the motions to get out of it, then we can easily find ourselves in a position where we bypass it. And as a result of that, we miss all of the opportunities to have that shift. But you
Mm.
didn't do that because you rebuilt the identity. You completely shifted yourself. So post war, you've come to Australia with a role that's, let's say, not the average job that you come into a country with. I can
No.
honestly say I only know one other person that's done this type of work. And
Okay.
so you've been invited to come to Australia. You've taken up the option. You've come here alone with someone. What happened to the love of your life?
Love of my life, that, well, I need to bury her in 1991 because the love of my life that stage, she became my enemy. See, that was my cornerstone of my abilities because the girl I was with, she was Serbian, I was Croatian, and when the war broke out, we need to split somehow. War split us up. I mean, she chose to go in Serbia, and I decided to stay to defend my country. So, but I always say to people, be careful what you wish for. So let me bring little refreshment to this conversation. So, 15th of January 1992, Croatia was internationally recognized,
Mhm.
and my platoon consisted 70% of the people 60 years plus. Can you imagine in combat? I mean, like, no pensioners, I mean, they're all senior citizens, stomach problems, cancer, I mean, just to name a
But
few.
while you're telling this story, I'm just going to pause and say, but they were all patriots.
Yeah, that's true. Like they all have this that you know what that is spot on. These people believe it in cause and they stayed at home. I mean, before they've been sent on the front line, they are working behind the lines. Delivering the food. Cleaning the streets after debris. The glass or the shelling and everything else was on the street. So there was a TV in our bunker, which was a basically big shipping container. Overnight was being brought and there was a show on TV. There's a commercial about McDonald's in Ibiza, and a couple girls in bikinis. They eating the McDonald's, and I saw with my big eyes, like I was 19 years old. It's like God, And then that out. I mean, the enemy was shelling that day because we've been recognized international, right?
Mhm.
And they were like they're throwing everything what they could possibly. When's gonna come? What I mean,
Yeah.
so
Last
which
ditch
they
effort.
yeah, but well did, I mean, but you weren't help for nothing, just just standing there. But
Yeah.
the point was, I saw that commercial, and then as I was stepping out, it was the 15th of January. It was at 25 degrees below, all snow. This yellow sun somewhere lost in the fog. But what I could see that there's an airplane very high. I think maybe over the Bosnia because Bosnia was being affected with the war later '92.
Mhm.
Said to myself, one day I'm gonna be on that plane, the chicks, the Ibiza, the cheeseburger, the bikinis, and it was like, oh yeah, yeah, boss. I mean, what happened to me? I was being approached '96 by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then that was called Directorate 7, which is basically foreign intelligence and security. And the 2 years I was grinding down in silence, and nobody really know what I was. preparing the transition. And on 30th of May 98, I was being given the paper, and I was being told on the 1st of June, 2 days later, I need to report in capital city. And when I told my boss, and he says to me, this cannot be like, you can't just leave the military, you know. You can't just, I was like, oh, it's paper here, walk away. So between May and November 98, I was being trained extensively now on other aspects of my business, of my work. Then my boss says to me, we'd like to send you to Australia. So like, what do you mean Australia? You know how far away that is. It's the end of the world. At that stage, Joe, Europe didn't know much about Australia, to be honest with you. Kangaroos, skippy, some nuclear tests, what I mean? But that's it, we know that Opera House is there.
Harbour
My boss
Bridge.
I said to my boss, what am I gonna do there? Like, you don't speak English, I speak German and the Russian. You will learn there on the spot. You need to learn, and we have it 30 days. Like, I can't learn just a little. So I was 26 years old, and what was your uncle? I mean, I was being sent to Canberra, and 3 weeks in Canberra. I said to my boss, I can't stay here. This is there. He says to me, send you in Sydney, okay?
Mhm.
When I come in Sydney, it was a Christmas time. What I saw, Joe, Pitt Street, Street.
David
There was a
Jones.
girl. There's a girls in dressed like in bikinis like a Santa Claus,
Yeah.
saying things like yes, dreams come true.
You're like,
But
finally.
yeah, so the thing was that yeah, I didn't know I'm gonna stay in Australia.
Mhm.
I'll say this honestly and openly. I met somebody who I was very fond, and I explained my situation. I said like our relationship kind of last then 1st of January 2003. I need to leave. It was like, but it was, I think, I mean the expiring date. I said, well, that's my job. So I lied. There was mom for 4 years. And I said, like, look, I'd like to have a kids with you, but I can't have a kids. So, they just want you to know because no expectations. And it happened what did happened. We got Matteo in 2003 through in vitro, but that was a turning point between me and the church. Was Catholic Church didn't want to baptize Matteo because he's in vitro.
Mm.
And yeah, I decided to stay in a young family, which fall apart 2009 due to GFC. We lost everything, so life's been shattered and all these things.
Mm.
My boy got epilepsy subsequently, and I need to start my life again from scratch. 2009, my business, and yeah, it was an interesting journey. At least it was interesting. So
Interesting journey for sure. So
yeah,
we've just managed to compress about 10 years of experiences, and there were a
mm,
whole lot of those in there.
yeah, yeah.
Um, was there a particular decision that you remember looking back that you think that one was absolutely poignant? It was so important that I decided that the way that I did.
Yes, it was the moment I wanted to stay in Australia. I saw that my life is gonna end two ways.
Mhm.
Either they're gonna find me in some ditch because that's usually it's the end of your career. Couldn't deal anymore with the life I had before. I mean, being tip of the spear. I mean, edge of the knife, being the guy, go-to guy, and I want to settle down. I want to experience that part of the life. Now, decision to stay in Australia was easiest part. The hardest part was to accept reality because now I need to take it away. 12 years of military of me, 5 years of diplomacy.
That's the
That
interesting part. How do you switch that off?
wouldn't I even today I'm struggling, Joe. Honestly, like sometimes I struggle. Sometimes people say to me like, "Many conversation with you." I, um, I think I have OCD. No, I think for sure I have OCD.
Yeah.
I love to have the structured life. I mean, or which most of people they believe have a structured life. For me, everything is about preparation, about assessments. You know what I mean? I need the proper tools, proper channels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can get where I need to get, what key objective I want to achieve. it was difficult. Look, it was difficult in all aspects of my life. I mean, even today, sometimes I'm dreaming I'm in uniform, I'm in a combat. I can say it's PTSD, but the government never book or manual which says when you finish with us, you're gonna leave. So this will become something else problem. Lucky for me, in one of the most beautiful countries in the world,
Mm.
the people can grow, just need to learn the language, to behave, and the doors are open. And it took me a lot of years before I
Yeah. Yeah, that manual for assimilation would be immensely useful in a lot of scenarios, right? When we talk about discharge from the army back into civilian life, that's and our transformation of identity is where people need the most support, especially when you're coming from a situation where you've had so much around you, so much regiment, so much structure. And then you're coming into a world where it's expected that, well, we've given you all the training. Now you're just going to go and apply that. Oh, and by the way, the unit that you had, the friends that you had, they're not going to be the same because
Mm,
you're in a position of power that's now not a position of power. So you also need to manage that, by the way, and go to a new country and see how that works out. Learn English because, hey, you've managed to learn a couple of languages and look at what you've done in the last 5 years. So English should be a breeze. And
yeah,
life just keeps rolling, right? It keeps giving
yeah.
you, some people call them challenges, some people call them problems. One of the biggest things that I work with the men that I work with is language and the feeling associated with language. So we shift the word problem to opportunity, not in a fa la la, I'm immensely toxically positive, nothing can go wrong mindset. It's always hinged in reality, but it's a, a reference to the fact that we have agency. We can choose how we feel and how we respond to any given situation on any given day. So when we're
You're
looking at
spot on.
something that's challenge, we can see it as a problem, in which case we go down a certain path of thinking, or we can look at it and say, I'm here now. What do I do with it to benefit from this? And I think that that's really one of the catch cries of your life. How am I going to show up in a way that this problem becomes an opportunity and I can either one, benefit from it, or two, minimize the impact of it purely because of how I show up?
Look, one of the things I can share certainly now from this point of view, I'm 53 now. It's that in life you're gonna face the challenge, no question asked. You are a product of your choices. Be careful what you choose. But when you face the obstacle, you have either two ways: either you the tackle, you're gonna avoid, but you need to go back and solve these things. You need to be equipped with the knowledge and the practical and the theoretical knowledge to tackle the problem ahead of you. If you don't know, you need to sit back and learn those things. I was being told by my father, man cannot cry, man cannot do this, man cannot do that. And I regret listening to my father because sometimes I really wish there was somebody there for me who can hug me, give me a big hug or say everything's gonna be okay. Nothing is wrong. You cannot be your best if you don't show your weaknesses. Somebody needs to address these weaknesses. We all have. I go in gym every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. The repetition makes you permanent. I remember one of the trainings, which was in the France 94. And I remember there was a big signage in front of the door, on top of the door, said, yeah, sweat saves blood. I said, what does it even mean? And I was being very, 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 very quickly, I was being shown what that means. Repetition, right? So repetition makes you permanent. Permanence make you discipline, you know what I mean? So we knew how to disassemble the weapons in the middle of the night, how to work as a one unit in a pitch black, all these things, So we repeated one action over and over again, many other actions. But the thing is, you cannot go in gym as me going 4 o'clock in the morning and seeing all these people and I seeing them, they're struggling. They wanted somebody to tell them, It's okay to be vulnerable. That is okay that you want to, you want a hug, big hug, because that is missing to somebody. Tell them, you are okay, man. I can make you better. Let's go start somewhere. That's your job, Joe. No, I mean, that's in the world owes you a lot, that every man owes you a lot because you try to help them to become better. And to become better, you need to have the people like yourself.
I truly believe that what you've just described is the primary role of a woman.
100%, 100%. It's not a, oh man, look, I can go around, like as I say, I was grow up in the different society. But one thing I must say, the woman holds the three corners of the house. No man, no man. It's a woman. You know what I mean? If man needs to give the birth, we will cry like a little girls. You know what I mean? Like I don't be rude now. The woman can do so much. Like, what I mean? You think that in a war, the man is that who goes in fighting? No, the war is more important behind the lines with the female nurses helping every injured man to go back on their feet. Men cannot do this. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's a woman's role. Yes.
I once got given that exact advice from David Goggins. I asked him a question about my daughter who wants to go into the military. And I said, she's a female that's going into a male dominated world. As her
Mm.
mother, what advice can you give me to support her, to give her what she needs? And he said this: you are going to need to be her stubborn rock. She's going to come to you crying, upset, wanting to quit. Your role is to dust her off, reassure her, boost her back up again, and send her back out. He said,
Fantastic
that's what
advice.
you
Yeah.
do as a mother. And that's what I believe women do for men. Our role is to see you as you are, to create an environment where you can show up in your vulnerability or whatever else that looks like. So you can then be you. You know, you have a space to come back to where you can show up as you are. There's no judgment, there's understanding, there's listening. And then what we do, we repackage you, we give you the boost that you need. We remind you who you are because you're never not that person. You just forget. And then we get you in a position where you can go back out and go and conquer the world because men are best in their place conquering the world, and women are best in our place reminding you who you are and giving you what you need. And together, when we manage to put two people together with that mindset, they're unstoppable and they get to live that life that we're all looking for.
100%. I will say something now, which it doesn't sound very happy statement, but I remember, and I lost a number of my colleagues and comrades, and I do remember one of the last words a dying man will say, "Mom," and I was like, he has a wife and kids. He calls them mom, and then psychiatrist explained to us, "The woman he brought you in this world, the woman." I'm like, yeah, but I'm the man, like, yeah, bro, just, it's
Yeah.
not. So as long as all understand what you're saying, it's a true statement, and I'll support this 100%. It is woman makes the man better, not man the man. That's for sure.
We can definitely give men something that men can't give each other, that's for sure.
That is true life.
Mario, thank you so much for this conversation. We've talked about war, we've talked about transformation, identity shifts. Thank you for being so absolutely vulnerable, but also absolutely transparent in what you've shared with us today. I know it can be difficult returning to memories. I'd
Mm.
like to finish with a final question, and this one's
Please.
super important.
Yes.
What character trait has remained consistent for you that you think that every uncommon man needs to have?
Loyalty. Loyalty, absolutely loyalty. Loyalty to those, loyalty to your cause, loyalty to people you love, to your family, and loyalty to yourself, to true yourself.
Loyalty,
That's mine. Yeah.
definitely. It's something that has a diminished capacity right now, that's for sure.
And we live in a world with a shiny, glittery lifestyle. It can be the point of betrayal, and sometimes what we see on the screen doesn't depict in reality, but people will betray you for those things. People betray you for the less important things. So the loyalty to be loyal to yourself, you need to be loyal to those who you love, and give your best, and most importantly, be loyal to these goals you put ahead of yourself. That's my loyalty.
Mario, thank you. This conversation may now be over between you and I, but it's over to the listener and the viewer of this episode. My question to you today, as you take away everything that Mario has just downloaded for us, is how has today's conversation led you to think uncommon? And until next time, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you to all of your listeners and viewers. And guys, you had an amazing podcast to listen.